So this week's episode is a combination of a lot of simple, just day-to-day activities that are really entertaining and quite hilarious. And then by the second half of the episode, we get focused on a side character who's only really appeared every so often. Even though he was introduced in episode 1, Hsieh hasn't really been a character that has been seen all that much. And by the end of the episode, you really grow to appreciate the relationship that he has with his sister and how different his home life is compared to his very energetic and loudmouth school life. I have seen different opinions surrounding the idea of focusing on the side cast versus focusing on Miyamura as well as Hori. As someone who feels complete with Hori and Miyamura's relationship, I've said it for a long time. 6 episodes into this show, it almost feels like you could have concluded the show and I would have been satisfied, more so than most rom-com stories out there. So for me, what should you do with the remaining episodes? And honestly, I don't know, because I've never seen a show make me feel so good with the central relationship that sure, you could continue to focus on that and I'm going to enjoy it, but you do have a large cast of characters. Do I want to see these characters more than do I want to see the main relationship? And I couldn't answer that question until I saw these episodes. When you have a side cast, you don't have to develop them. You don't have to make them plot relevant or anything like that. Naturally, when you go to school, as an example, you're not always going to learn everything about people that you interact with. But when you have a show like Horimiya that's really made me feel complete with these two's relationship, I want to see more. I want to see what the writer can do with characters who generally would be tropes and cliches. And a loudmouth boy who doesn't know when to shut up, I honestly thought they did a great job at once again breaking down what I thought was a trope and making me appreciate them as a person, not just the green-haired, loudmouth anime boy. I really feel like that about this show. While it's obviously going to be a matter of opinion, do you want to see more Miyamura and Hori, or do you want to see more about the side cast? I really feel like the past 3 episodes to me have been anything else but boring. I've seen some people say they're boring, I've seen people make arguments on why they feel that way, and while I may not agree with their opinions, I don't disregard them as being worthless opinions. Everyone has an opinion. As long as people explain their opinions, it's kind of like the great thing about debate and discussion. But for me, watching a show where, at this point, what can you really do with these episodes? I feel like this is what you should do. Give at least everyone one moment to shine. And a character like Hsieh, who really, probably one of my least favorite types of personality in anime. Generally, it's given to like the loudmouth kind of tsundere character, but to have someone like him who doesn't feel like a bad guy, but just doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut. You interact with, kind of like the up-and-coming little sister dynamic with our boy Miyamura, and how she is so, like, timid and fearful, and then you have him just, like, blow the cover, and then when he's sick, he can't talk, so it's, like, the only time when he really gets accepted by those characters. It's great to have that, but then when you actually get to see the home life with Hsieh, I thought it was really interesting. The only new character in this episode was his sister, and his sister is trying to get into this very good school, but her grades aren't up to par, and unfortunately the truth was that, you probably should try another school. And it sounds kind of shitty to say to a kid, but at the same time, if the grades aren't there and you see the student is trying and they are studying and just history doesn't point that they'll be able to get to that school, you probably should set your bars lower. Unfortunately, that is how it is. Some people have the skills to do certain things and others don't. There's plenty of things in the world that I can't do, and if I was to set my expectations to try to do that and pursue it, I would be set up for failure. It's simply how it is. But I like how the brother contrasts that, where at school you kind of have to be a little more blunt, say, hey, you should probably try for this, maybe set your expectations here. Try, but don't say this is the end-all be-all. The brother starts off just simply saying, hey, are you gonna eat dinner? Okay, your grades suck, that doesn't stop you from eating dinner. And he recognizes that she is studying her, she is trying her hardest. But the thing is if that's not enough, then probably you should try a different school. And he does something I think that's really simple but really sweet. Their uniforms suck. Try our school. I really think it's the simple things that make a relationship just really stand out. It's not the, you're so perfect, you'll do it. It's simply saying, like, maybe this isn't going to be the school for you, but there's other schools out there. And I love how this relationship, like, both of them kind of think the other hates them, but they both care about each other so much. The idea that when she's over at Hori's kind of studying, or really just kind of getting to know Hori before the studying, she's saying, I really hope my brother doesn't hate me. And then we transition to him buying a kind of like good luck charm. And he's like trying to buy the biggest and most expensive, the one that will guarantee make her pass. it's not like he's saying don't try, but like if you fail, there's other schools out there and it's not the end of the world. You have plenty more opportunities in your life. It's very interesting having stuff like that happen because you can't have that with the main characters, right? Hori and Miyamura don't have a story that could happen like that because the little brother in Hori's case, I mean, he's not at the stage of needing to worry about the next school and things like that. He's just playing and, chilling with his new big bro. I like how this is a show that, sure, if you don't like any of the characters in the side cast, maybe these episodes would be boring to you. But as someone who just is here to watch a story take place, the fact that I have so many character designs that before entering the show, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of this person or this person from this anime. Not really excited to see what they're going to do in the show because they're generally tropes and personalities that are pretty one-dimensional and flat. Horimiya said no, they may start out like that, and they may have that as a core aspect about their character. Loudmouth, timid, all these kind of like tropes that generally just fall flat on their face. It's so interesting to see how either backstories or present day actions shape them into be someone who you feel like are actually a person with history, even if they do fit that trope criteria that anime is known for. I really like that about this show, and I like the simplicity of this episode as well. Personally, I was expecting just a bunch of like miniature short stories throughout this episode because it would be like 2 minutes, snowflakes, next story, snowflakes next, and then we end with snow. It actually kind of reminded me, this may seem like a really weird comparison if you've ever seen the anime, but hear me out. There's a show called Nanan Biori, which is basically just like a group of really young characters who are like in preschool and like, they all are part of this like very small village. So every grade is in the same school location, the same classroom. And it's just like the simplest like slice of life scenes in a very boring town. But it's without a doubt one of the most peaceful anime experiences you could ever have. And to me, in a similar way, watching these high school characters just interact, goof off, and things like that, the way they were interacting and the way the stories were being presented for like the first half of this episode, it kind of gave me like a reminiscent feeling of Nanan Biori, just with older characters where it's just the daily adventures. Nothing too serious is happening. There's a lot of goofy, there's a lot of silly, and sometimes they try to go dramatic. But it's just, that's how their life should be if they're a part of a normal school environment with varying personalities and characters. And I don't think many anime get that right. I feel like a lot of times when you have quote-unquote slice of life scenes, it is more designed to be something very artificial, where I honestly have to say the general banter in Horimiya feels like general characters, and you could see it happening with any teenage group of characters. The same way in a show like Nanan Biori, for the characters' ages, it feels like the interactions and the goofy things they say make sense given their perception of reality currently. I love Horimiya. It may sound like a broken record to say it every week, and for the past few weeks I've been very heavily complimenting the side characters, but they've been the focus, is to really make sure it feels like rather than leaving Horimiya in episode 13 feeling like, oh, the main relationship was really good, but I can't really say the same about these characters. I can say the same about these other characters. The fact that, we're actually exploring love in a realistic way. Naturally in high school, just because you like someone doesn't mean they'll like you back. Yuki has people latching onto her, but we know who she likes, and then you see the jealousy from others, right? Just because someone feels a certain way doesn't mean you have to give those feelings back, because you might like character A, but character A might like character C who likes you. And it becomes messy, but that's just life in general. And it doesn't have to have a resolution where everyone ends up with someone. These are just the daily adventures of these characters, and I really appreciate that. Definitely some of the funnier faces. There's a couple of shots that kind of felt like they might have been outsourced to lower class studios just with some of the facial designs, but I mean, given the studio and how many shows they're producing, I kind of expect that, but the shots that mattered were definitely very highly refined and polished, and overall, I leave Horimiya excited for the next episode. I mean, personally, if the only thing I would really say I could be considered concerned about is I hope the very last episode will be primarily focused on Hori and Miyamura. But if next week comes around with more sidecasts, I wouldn't be complaining. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. What did you think, and where do you think it might go with episode 12 and 13 in the coming weeks? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you're happy and you're around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.